Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Team Param Vedanta warmly welcomes you to session 14 of Panchadashi, the powerful Vedantic text authored by the great warrior saint Swami Vidyaranya. In the 7th chapter, Swami Vidyaranya takes us systematically through 7 stages of our spiritual evolution, beginning with realizing our ignorance or ajnana, to finally discovering our true nature of being, which is that of tripti, constant and complete fulfillment. Chapter 7 elaborates on one verse of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad shloka. We have now understood the nature of our Atma. Atmanam chet vijaniyat ayam asmi iti purushaha. That aham brahmasmi. Next, we understood kim icchan. What are the types of desires which all of us have? And kasya kamaya. Who is the desirer or the bhokta? In today's class, we will learn how to go through all of our lives' experiences remaining detached. We also move on to the final part of the shloka, Shariram Anusanjvaret. Before we begin today's important class, I request Mamta to please help us recollect what we learned previously. Over to you, Mamta.
Thank you, Panaga. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Today we will do the recap of the verses 192 to 210 of chapter 7 of Panchadashi that we learnt in detail in the previous session. The next slide. Vidyaranya takes up analyzing the second part of the second line of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Shloka 4.12 Kasya Kamaya from verse 192. Kasya Kamaya means for whose sake is this enjoyment or experience in life. Vidyaranya says we have to inquire or analyze the non-reality nature of Bhokta, the experiencer, by demonstrating that our true nature is pure consciousness, which is asanga, untouched or not affected. Let us look at it with an example. Like when I say, I would like to read a book or I would like a cup of coffee, who is this I, also known as Bhokta or the self or experiencer of whatever is happening around us? In other words, experiencer of the worldly objects. For this profound question, Vidyaranya gives 3 possible scenarios.
Wake him up. Wake him up.
First one is Bhokta the pure, unchanging original consciousness? Second one, is Bhokta the reflected consciousness? Third one, or is Bhokta a mixture of the two? We will use the terms OC for original consciousness, RC for reflected consciousness in the rest of the presentation. In the next slide, let us try to understand this part of the verse in the form of the question, what is I from the perspective of experiencer? Bhoga, the experience, is subject to change due to our identification with pain and pleasure associated with worldly objects. The experiencer, Bhokta, who is experiencing the changes, also is subject to change. And the ever-changing experience is due to the ever-changing thoughts in our mind. Kutastha Chaitanya, or the OC, the absolute reality, illumines or reveals the changing conditions of the mind and is not affected by what is revealed. Like, for example, a sad thought makes us experience sadness, happy thought makes us happy and experience happiness. OC reveals the sadness or happiness in us, but remains unchanged and is asanga, unaffected by sadness or happiness. Unchanging, unaffected consciousness to be bhokta, the experiencer of the worldly objects, and also subject to change is a contradiction. So Vidyaranya rules out the possibility of Kuthastha being bhokta, the experiencer. In the next slide, Vidyaranya in verse 196 looks at the possibility of reflected consciousness being bhokta, and we can look at it to answer the question, which is what is the analysis of I or the bhokta, the experiencer, from the perspective of experience. Let us see what reflected consciousness is. RC is the reflection of thoughts associated with objects that results in experience. With changing thoughts, for example, happy, sad, angry thought, RC is also changing or experiencing happiness, sadness, so on. And hence, RC is subject to change. Bhokta is the experiencer, and experiences associated with objects is subject to change, and RC, as we just saw, is also subject to change. In this scenario, can changing RC by itself be a changing bhokta? Reflected consciousness, being a reflection, cannot have an existence of its own. It requires OC, the underlying absolute reality, for its existence. So RC, although it appears as experiencing the objects, it cannot exist on its own without OC. Hence, RC on its own cannot be bhokta. And Vidyaranya negates RC being bhokta as well. This leads us to the third option in the analysis of Kasya Kamaya, which we can look at it in the form of the question, what am I with respect to OC and RC? That is, it should be the combination of RC and OC. That is, bhokta should be the combination of RC and OC. Scriptures say, bhokta, the experiencer, is a combination of RC and OC, with OC as the substratum from worldly perspective, and it is only an intermediary step. From absolute perspective, which is reality, this bhokta eventually has to culminate in Kutastha Chaitanya, that is original consciousness or abhokta for the seeker. If we are OC, abhokta, and it is the absolute reality or truth, and the OC can't be bhokta, which we just saw, or the experiencer, then how do we explain the experience we are having all the time? For example, to be specific, who is experiencing this class we are having? In the next slide, so we can look at the explanation for this scenario or this confusion in terms of what do we mean by superimposition in regards to bhokta. In verse 200, Vidyaranya elaborates on the confusion surrounding bhokta, which is a mixture of RC and OC. Due to lack of discrimination, confusion, we fail to differentiate between RC and OC. Vidyaranya's analysis shows that in the first stage, the RC, in other words, every experience of ours or the experiencer status, bhoktritva status, is superimposed on abhokta, the original consciousness. Analogy could be the red color of the red flower in close proximity is superimposed on colorless crystal, making the crystal appear as red crystal. In case of who is experiencing the class, the experiencer's experience is superimposed on OC, and we say we are experiencing the class. And in the second stage, the reality of the original consciousness is transferred onto the reflected consciousness. In other words, it is transferred onto what we experience. Like in the rope snake example, we mistakenly say it is a snake. The isness which is associated with snake really does not belong to the snake because there is no snake. But the isness of the rope, which is real, is borrowed and transferred to snake, and the snake appears as real. Similarly, due to confusion or non-discrimination, we look upon ourselves as a real bhokta. We want experiences to continue. We are aware that these experiences involves bondage, pleasure, pain, sorrow, so on, but we don't want to give it up. We, however, have to realize that experiences do come and go, and it does come to an end. But I, the OC, alone is eternal, and I am that OC. The next slide. So what is Vidyaranya trying to imply from the analysis of Kasyaka Maya? In reference to these objects of experience which we are talking about, Vidyaranya says the seeker who understands that true source of happiness or love is not from any objects in the world, but true source of happiness is from Bhokta, the self, that seeker becomes dispassionate towards the objects and with strong conviction and commitment enters into self-inquiry of who am I, consisting of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. In the next and the last slide, how is this discrimination of Atma, the self, and Anatma, the non-self, achieved? The method of self-inquiry is discussed in this verse 210, the last verse in the set of verses to recap. In the path to self-inquiry through Guru's Shastra Upadesha, the method of discrimination of the self or Atma and non-self, the body-mind sense complex, called Anvaya Vyatireka, is elaborated. Analyzing the three states of experience, the waking, dream, and deep sleep, with Anvaya Vyatireka, we should be able to discover the essential or true nature of Bhokta. Anvaya is non-variable, something that is always present in all three states of experience that we just talked about, and the three periods of time, that is the past, present, and future, and does not undergo any change, which is the original consciousness. And Vyatireka is variable, which does undergo change, it comes and goes, which is the reflected consciousness. With this discernment, one realizes original consciousness illumines the changing conditions of the mind, and that unchanging consciousness is I am. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Mamta. That was a very systematic and a very nice summary of so many verses which touch on a very important topic, Kasya Kamaya. Kasya Kamaya literally means, you are listening to me. Is it your ears that are listening? Is it your brain that is listening? Who is listening? Who is the experiencer? And Vidyaranya handles this experiencer in a very brilliant way to make it the essence of all Vedanta, the discovery of who am I. Mamta has done a wonderful job in analyzing all these verses, but as this topic is so important, I would like anybody to raise some questions. Mamta will answer. We can have a small few minutes of discussion on this.
Can you explain that Anvaya Vyatireka once again?
So, Mamta, please tell us what is this Anvaya Vyatireka?
And what is the Vivinchata also?
What is your second part, Dola? Other than Anvaya Vyatireka, second one was?
Vivinchata. That meaning.
Inquiry. Vivinchata means making an inquiry.
Okay.
Yeah, thus with an inquiry. That is, yes, like Anupama ma'am said, inquiring into this scenario, we come to this analysis that inquiring through the method of Anvaya Vyatireka. Sir, I'll try my best with what I have understood. Then I would like you to give more clarity on Anvaya Vyatireka.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Anvaya is means this is one of the philosophical method that has been discussed as told by Swamiji's Paramarthananda, and I have referred Tadatmananda Swamiji's notes as well, talk as well. Anvaya is non-variable, that is, and Vyatireka means variable. So non-variable is something that is there in, it doesn't change in any scenario. And if you consider this waking, sleep, dream, in all these three states, the experiencer or the awareness principle or the consciousness principle remains unchanged. What we are thinking keeps on changing, our body keeps on changing with the time. So the non-self part, the body, mind, sense part changes, but the awareness principle, the consciousness principle is unchanging all the time. That is Anvaya. Then Vyatireka is variable. As I just mentioned, the body-mind sense complex keeps changing with in the waking it is different, and in the deep sleep it is absent. But the absence of it is always kept track by the awareness principle. So the awareness principle, or the original consciousness, the consciousness principle is always there, whether it's the waking state or the dream state or the deep sleep state. So that is Vyatireka is a variable, and reflected consciousness falls in that category because it's sometimes there, like in deep sleep, it is not there, it is dissolved. But in waking state, it is there, but it keeps changing. With our thoughts changing, the reflected consciousness changes. And so reflected consciousness is associated with the experiences that we are having, which is directly related to the thoughts in the mind. That is my understanding. And that is what I have understood. So that is with trying to discern based on this principle, you inquire into who am I, and then negate the reflected consciousness that I am not reflected consciousness. I am the original consciousness, which is there always, eternal. Sir, I would like you to...
No, thank you. You have done a very clear explanation, but this is a satsang for discussion. Anupama, can you add or tell us something about Anvaya Vyatireka, exactly what Mamta did, and to say how this Anvaya Vyatireka helps us in the who am I discussion and understanding Kasya Kamaya. Dr. Anupama, please.
Okay, I shall also try my best. We have two concepts in Vedanta. One is Satya, the other is Mithya. Satya is that which is consistent in all periods of time and under all circumstances. Mithya is the variable one. So Anvaya is Satya, that which is unchanging. Mithya is anything that changes, and that is Vyatireka. So when you want to identify with something that is Satya, it should be Anvaya, it should be unchanging, whether it is Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti, whether it is in dimension of space, time, or in by way of attribute. If there is no change at all, it is Satya. So when you have to identify with a Satya Vastu, it should be Anvaya, unchanging in time, space, and by attribute. Anything which changes comes under Vyatireka, and that is Mithya. You should not identify with that.
How will you use this to discover Kasya Kamaya? Who is the experiencer in me?
The experiencer is in me is that which is consistent in all period of time, no change.
That means you will say the original consciousness is the experiencer.
Yes, that aspect of me which has been with me from childhood till now without any change.
But see, the original consciousness does not have an instrument to make out what is happening. It is an illuminator, but it does not get affected. And therefore, it is not really listening to this class. That means to be a participant in this class, you not only require that original consciousness, you need something else also. Isn't it?
You need the mind.
Correct. So therefore, we are an inseparable combination of the reflected consciousness and the original consciousness. The role of this Anvaya Vyatireka part of it is to see without that we are a combination at all times of body, mind with Atma. At all times we are body, mind and Atma. Because of the body mind, we are going through this Vedanta class. We are able to understand what is ignorance, what is knowledge, and all that is possible because of the body mind. The body mind by itself is inert. It cannot do anything else without the original consciousness. Now, as we analyze, we realize the real Bhokta is none other than this unique combination of the reflected consciousness with the original consciousness. Now, when you do the Anvaya Vyatireka, you get a startling knowledge that there is one component of me which is there only for maybe part of the day, and then most of the time it is not there. So our whole job is to give less importance to this body-mind complex, which is there for some time, which is not there, because it is there for this life. Now, it is certainly because of this body-mind, we are getting Brahma Vidya, and we are so grateful to that, which is helping us to go beyond that. It is like, it is like that pole vault that is helping us to go across. Without that, I cannot go across. But at the same time, I need to know that this is what is helping me to go across. At the same time, I have to learn to detach from it, because if I hold on to it, I will never be able to go through or identify the Anvaya, the real me. Now,
So,
Go ahead.
Anvaya Vyatireka is a method of, is a viveka
Prakriya.
of
That's one of the
discriminating.
useful prakriyas. Yeah.
It's a prakriya. That's how we use it, right?
And all these prakriyas, is all these are part of the inquiry process. Now, without body-mind complex, this class is not possible. I need this body-mind complex. But when you do this Anvaya Vyatireka, you'll realize, see what comes and goes. Supposing you have to invest in a company, a corporation, which comes today and goes away tomorrow. Are you going to invest in that? You will certainly not invest in that. That means, are you going to give importance to your body-mind? So remember, there is something in addition to my body-mind that I wish to give importance to. And that he is using this very subtly to help us to discover this who am I. This who am I inquiry is the most important inquiry a Vedanta student. And one of the prakriyas is the Anvaya Vyatireka method, which keeps coming in so many ways. It's actually Avastatraya prakriya. So where we get to know what is Satya and what is Mithya. Once you know there is some component in you which is there for some time, all our life we invest so much on our body-mind complex. Swamiji Anubhavananda said, whatever you give a lot of importance to, that something is the cause of all our problems in our life. Now, once we realize that this aspect of me is not so important, then what happens? I give less importance to everything that comes with my body-mind. Everything Anatma is given less importance to. I give more importance to Anatma. Then what happens? You will understand the next part. When the body-mind is going through Jwara, you will say this is the Jwara of the body-mind, which is part of me or an instrument of me. But then I do not have Anujwara. Shall we proceed?
Sir, Anvaya, then if it's unchanging reality, Satya, it's only one. It's Advaya also.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
There can't be a second at all.
That's true. That is the original consciousness is in you and in me and in all of us. It is the same. There is that one non-dual entity which is playing both as you and me. That is such a mystery.
So there's only one.
Tell me.
There is only one then.
There is only one. That is the beauty of understanding. When one knows thee, then alien there is none, no door is shut. That is the whole discovery of Advaita Vedanta. Let us discover the one in the play of the many. So when you are able to identify yourself in the other person, see, we are able to identify ourselves in our own family members, in our own children, because their pain becomes our pain. This is also like Anujwara. See, when you identify your body as me, then the bodily problems we internalize. But Vedanta wants you to see that everybody is not other than you. So either you negate the body-mind complex and you say only Atma, original consciousness, is real, or you include everything as you. So when you go to Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yat Kinchit Jagatyam Jagat, there the whole world, body-mind, everything is taken as Isha, as the Lord. Or you do this method of what is called another beautiful prakriya is Drik Drishya Viveka. Neti Neti. I am not my body. Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Nahatam. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham.
Sir, what you're saying then is Satyeva Chit Chitteva Sat, sir.
Correct. See, See, what happens, what do you mean by Satyeva Chit Chitteva Sat? When
There's
we-
nothing other than Sat. What
No,
it is
I'll
all-
tell you, the mind makes a separation between existence and consciousness. There is no actual separation between consciousness and existence. When you are fast asleep, consciousness and existence are one. That is where we experience Purnatvam, we experience limitlessness, we experience Ananda or Anantatvam. The moment we wake up, the mind seems to make a separation between the not I and I. The not I means everything that I see and experience is not I. Technically, that not I should include my body mind because that is also an object of experience. The moment the mind comes in, two things come in: Atma, Atma and Anatma. That means the experiencer in me and that which is experienced. Now, the moment I see a separation, all samsara comes and all problems come. So how do we resolve this? Either you see Atma Satyeva Chit Chitteva Sat. You are able to identify that the existence that I see is none other than the consciousness in me. That is one method. So even when I see differences, but I do not differentiate. Now we have the tongue and the teeth example. You know, we have sometimes we hurt ourselves, but we excuse our teeth for biting our tongue because I know although someone is hurt and someone is hurting, I don't make a distinction. Now that is a Vedantic's vision that nobody can hurt you. You know, when somebody hurts you or insults you, then this is the analysis. Now, is he attacking my body-mind complex or is he speaking to me as Atma? Now, if he is attacking my body-mind complex, then the Vedantin will say, oh, I know more than he about my own limitations, so I will accept what he says. But if he's speaking, criticizing the Atma, he's criticizing himself, poor fellow. So either way, you cannot be hurt. Badram Karnevi Shrunyama Devaha. In every situation, you see auspiciousness.
Thank you, sir.
Proceed. Okay.
Can I just?
Sure, Nanita.
So I think Vidyaranya in these verses is trying to again drop one more aspect, that is the experience aspect, which we have been claiming that all along, that I am that very experiencer which experiences the world. He's dropping that also in these verses, that there is only Atma and this world and this body are all a dream. If I take myself as a small person in the dream, I will feel that I'm the experiencer and all that. And there is no connection between the dream bodies, all the dream bodies, and the dreamer. Same way, there is no connection between this Anatma and all these, Bhokta, all these, in that Kim Kasya, he first said there will be no desires for this Atma, which I'm claiming it to be myself. And now he's saying I'm not the experience also. What will I experience if there's nothing to experience? Because it's all mithya. Everything is mithya. Everything else is mithya. So there's nothing to experience and there is no experiencer. Right?
The first part. See, the first part was Kim Ichan. In Kim Ichan, there is no Bhokta Vastu because everything has been negated. Because everything is mithya. Now, for example, if you see all around you fake money, are you going to run after it? Now, the whole world is taken as fake. If you take the whole world as fake currency, then are you going to give any importance to anything? It is like a mirage, it is like a beautiful mirage, but are you going to run after a mirage? You're not. Once you know it is a mirage, you're not going to run after it. Secondly, you also know Bandhakatvam, Atriptikaratvam, and Dukkha Mishritvam. So this is the problem with Kim Michan. And if a wise person is not going to invest too much, see, I need some bodily food, shelter, I take care of it, but then I'm not going to invest too much in it. So we have negated the objects of experience. Now we have come to who is the experiencer. In the experiencer, there is a lower body-mind complex essential. All of you are listening because you have that Chidabhasa. Now we have to discover who's the whole Chidabhasa. Right from the beginning of Tripti Deepa, a lot of importance. The Purva Pakshi keeps on asking questions, and the question is always about this Chidabhasa. The combination of the body-mind complex, which is the reflecting media, and the original consciousness, when they come together, a new entity is born. That is the ego or ahankara. So which has no existence by itself, but it is because of the original consciousness plus the reflecting medium. Proceed.
Sir, one question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir, just wanted to ask, in the Satya Mithya context, is the reflected consciousness Mithya and the original consciousness Satya? That is one.
Absolutely.
And so in deep sleep state, we don't have a reflected consciousness, right? At that, in
Correct.
that state, it is everything is only, I mean,
Yes.
it is Satya. It is the Satya experience.
The
I mean,
Yeah, when the mind is not there, when the mind is not functioning, for example, under anesthesia or deep sleep, during death or during pralaya, these are 4 examples. When the mind is not functionally there, then the mind is the reflecting medium. When the mind is not there, the Chidabhasa is not there. When Chidabhasa is not there, only the original consciousness is there. Chinmatra, pure existence. Or proceed. Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmani Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmani Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat Ayam Asmiti Purushaha Kimichan Kasya Kamaya Shariram Anusanjuret. I will go back to the first. This is the 14th class, 14 into 2, 28 sessions have gone through, in which we have chanted this mantra, Namah Shri Shankarananda. I have explained this in the earlier classes. This time I'm going to ask you questions. Now, Namah Shri Shankarananda. Who is Shankarananda? Now, whenever you're making a prayer, you have to have an object of reference. This is the very difficult guru of Vidyaranya Swami and his brother. Vidyaranya Swami and his brother Bharati Tirtha, both Mathadipatis of the Sringeri. When they were very small, their father took them to Shankarananda, who was a difficult person in many ways. Difficult in the sense he was not ready to accept anybody as a student. But when he saw these 2 exceptionally bright people, he accepted them as his students. But then Vidyaranya later discovered, and we have a lot of works by Sri Shankarananda, and they say brilliant works, but extremely difficult to understand because that was his style. Now, when you go through a teacher who has a style who is difficult, and the student has got that Brahma Vidya, now the student now wants to make it easy. In the first Prakarana, in the Panchadashi, the first chapter, Vidyaranya uses the word Sukha Bodhaya. In the second verse itself, he says, now I want to present to you Brahma Vidya in Sukha Bodhaya, in a method that is easily understandable. So that was one of the difficulties he had with his teacher, and he wanted to make it. Now, I don't know who's Shankarananda. None of us know. We don't even have a picture. How do we give reference? So our teacher says, when you have to pray every time to Shankarananda, why not pray as Lord Shankara? That's why I put a picture of Dakshinamurti. Now, for us, when you're using this prayer, we will use this as Dakshinamurti, which can also represent our Guru, Swami Paramarthananda, or whoever is your Guru. And because Dakshinamurti represents not only the Adi Brahma Vidya Acharya, but Dakshinamurti also represents our own personal Guru. Now, I will go through the whole thing and then give you some time for discussion. Guru Padambu Janmani. Now, what is Ambu Janmani? Janmani means born of. Ambu means water. What is born out of water?
Lotus.
It is lotus. My guru's pada, my guru's feet, which I prostrate to and I give a lot of reverence to, is like a lotus. So the first line is only Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Pada Ambu Janmane. It is a mental prostration to my guru. Now we come to the next word. Now, for sake of our understanding, it has been broken up, but actually, Savilasa Maha Moha Graha Grasaika Karmane is one compound word. Now, it should have been actually in one line, but then it is difficult for us to understand, so teachers for us break it up. When you have this one word, Savilasa Maha Moha Graha Grasaika Karmane. Now, when you have in Sanskrit, when you have to break a word, now you have to do Urdu style. What is the Urdu style? In English and in Sanskrit, you read from right to left. You read from left to right. But when you are breaking the word, then you do like in Urdu, you go from left to right. Now, when you go from right to left, I'm sorry. When you go from left to right, now this is how you go. Now, I want you to break up. I'm sorry. Right to left. Now, take the word karmane. Remember, what is my guru's karma? And he classifies it as eka karmani. All right. My guru has got only one job. Strange. Now, supposing your guru is an enlightened guru and he's got a lot of followers and he's got a lot of money coming into his ashram. And because of that, can he start a hospital? Can he start a school? Can he do all that? Technically, Vidyaranya saying, my guru is an exceptional person. He's an enlightened person. An enlightened person should do only eka karmani. He should not go around building hospitals, building educational institutions, doing anything else other than, see, others can do all these things. He is an enlightened master. An enlightened master should be able to share his enlightenment with other people. That the eka karmani, the only job of an enlightened person is to be able to share his enlightenment. And how does he share his enlightenment? Graha. Graha literally means the one who eats. So my teacher eats. What does he eat? Graha. What does he eat?
He eats away my delusion.
Correct. He is the eater of the great monster. He is the one who eats away the great monster. Now, sometimes when you want to frighten children, you talk about that monster. So, Graha is the one who eats. Grasika is the great monster. My guru has the ability to eat that monster. Who is that monster? Who is the monster now?
Moha.
Moha. Moha is delusion. And there is a quality for that. Mahamoha. Mahamoha means ignorance. When you don't know your true nature, then you have vikshepa. Whenever there is ajnana, whenever there is avarana of my true nature, then I have a feeling I am a limited person. And because of the limited person, you have this triad, avidya, kama, karma. Then a desire comes, and if I do this, then I will be happy. So once desire comes, can you keep quiet? That is what is called savilasa. See, ignorance does not come alone. It is like when you get married to one person, but along with that person, so many family members come. That is what is called savilasa. When you get linked up to moha, when you get linked up to ignorance, with ignorance comes its paraphernalia. It comes up to so many things. And my teacher, who is has the ability to eat that great monster, who's the Mahamoha, and along with its byproduct, Savilasa, to such a guru, I do my namaskara. This is the, any questions about this mantra? Beautiful opening mantra of Panchadashi. Got it? You will remember this for the rest of your life. All right, shall I proceed? Okay. Atmanam ched vijaniya ayam asmiti purushaha. See, the first line and question for you is, the first line is explained in how many verses of Tripti Dipa? The first line.
297.
The first line.
135.
Correct. 134. Exactly. Because Marge, Granto, Shranto, you remember those two travelers? That is a beautiful verse 134. At 134, he completes the analysis of Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat Ayam Asmiti Purusha. Now, this Purusha actually is Purusha. For in this, the Vedic uses Purusha. Who is this Purusha or Purusha? It is the Chidabhasa. It is that, you know, that Bhokta that we are talking about, this body-mind complex, this ego. And then he says, this limited fellows, all of us who think we are body-mind, because that's how we are born. You know, our capital is ignorance. We are all born with the ignorance of our true nature, and we think we are Purusha or Purusha. But then the teacher begins to say, if that word Ched is important. If Ched, if what happens, if Janiyat, if you get to know, not just Janiyat, Vijaniyat. So we have to know our true nature as none other than Atma. We need to know that I am not this limited body-mind complex, but I am actually the original consciousness functioning through this limited body-mind complex. That will be the complete definition. How should you know? I am asmi iti. I should know this as myself. All right, first line. Any questions on the first line? Any doubts on the discussion? Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat. Each of these words have been analyzed. You know, the Purusha should know that we are one with Atma. Ched. Ched comes to the next line. Supposing you know what happens, then kimichan kasya kamaya. Now, supposing you know your true nature, then what is the benefit of that you will see in the next line? But you have to know yourself very clearly. Now, I am asmi iti. That is where you should not know it as paroksha jnanam. You should know it as aparoksha. That is why you brought in the 10th man story, where initially you have paroksha jnanam that the 10th man exists, but then you get an understanding that the 10th man is none other than myself. Now we come to the next line. Any doubts on the first line? Each word of the first line. 134 verses. See, nowhere else there is such a great analysis of the Shruti Vakya in such detail as you see in Tripti Deepa. 134 verses for half a shloka. Proceed. And of course, Kim Nichan, we have discussed. We have to make all the objects of my experience mithya. Kasya kamaya. That is what we are discovering. For whose sake? Who is that experiencer? Is that experiencer real? Are we going to invest too much on that real? Later on in this, we will discover that when you are alive, you have to put your own body down. You have to allow that Chidabhasa to die like a roasted seed. You know, let it be functionally there, you know, just for my basic functions only, but that reflected ego should be gone away. And in today's class, you will have a beautiful discussion on what is the jwaras that come to the Sharira, because the doctors will treat all the Sharira jwara, but then the Vedantic teachers will teach how to handle Anujwara. So the first line is a Mahavakya. The second line is the benefit of knowing the Mahavakya. Now, if remember Ched, if you have understood this, then what happens? There should be a paradigm shift. There should be a change. That means from now on, after studying so many verses, your mindset is not the same. You have changed. You realize and you declare to yourself, not softly but loudly. Loudly means not to anybody else, but loudly to yourself, that every cell of your being knows that I am Atma Brahma. The ego is only a functional thing, but I am not the ego. As ego, there is no complete solution to any problem. So therefore, as Atma, you will discover there is no problem. From now onwards, how many of us? 30 of us. Declare yourself as Atma and declare also that I am no longer a sadhaka. A sadhaka requires various sadhanas to become a mukta purusha. But declare yourself, I know I am Atma Brahma. I have a limited body mind and I know I need to do a lot for my body and a lot for my mind. Do all those sadhanas to improve your body mind. But as far as your life's mission is concerned, to be a Jivan Mukta, there is nothing to be done because moksha is not a goal. Now, tomorrow morning, when you wake up and you discover this body, silently celebrate. You know, I am Atma Brahma. Every step, every interaction is I am Atma Brahma. I have put on my body as a costume. Then every activity we do is a function of grateful living. I'll gratefully take care of this body. I give the body a bath, give a whatever. If the body has got some pain, then do whatever exercises, whatever physical therapy you need to do for the body. Take care of the body to the extent that is required. You remember, this is an instrument that is there for some time. But then your life's vision is over. Now, at this stage, Swamiji is going to conduct a test. Now, this is not the final test. Later on, he's going to do a final test. Now, those who pass this test will be eligible for the final test. I won't tell you what is the final examination, because when you come to the final examination, we'll give you the question. Now, in this test, what happens, Swamiji is going to give you an option. Now, he is not allowing you to sit on chairs. He's sitting on the dais and all of us are standing there. And he says, all those who have understood I am Atma Brahma very clearly, you know, Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat, I am Asmiti Purusha. You've understood the first line, come and sit on my right. Those who have not yet understood can sit on the left. Those who have a doubt whether you have understood or not, sit at the back. Now the choice is yours. Now we have explained whatever. Now, if you have been in this satsang, then all of you come and sit on the right. Because now you know what sadhana that you need to do. There is no sadhana to be done. You are already that. Any thoughts, any discussion on this? Now, do you have any hesitation after all this to sit in the back seat, or will you go on to the left? Because if you have the confidence, see, there are some seats in the front. You know, in Brahma Vidya, there is no gradation. There is no like junior or senior students. So you can go sit right in the front row. Now, this is your birthright, like that great master had said, no? Tilak. Swaraj is my birthright and I will have it. Atma is my birthright and I will have it. So claim your right and come and sit where you are. Any doubts? Anybody who's listening here, would you ever sit in the back or onto the left?
No.
Okay, that is reassuring. All right. As we come to this class today, we are now coming towards the end of the discovery of Kasya Kamaya. Now, there is this verse which is it is from the this verse is from the Kaivalya Upanishad. I will chant this verse. Trishu damasu yad bhogyam bhokta bhogasya yad bhavet tebhyo vilakshana sakshi chinmatroham sadashiva. Now, this verse, even if you do not know the meaning, take this, all of us, 30 of us here, take this as an exercise to keep it in your mind. This is how Vedanta is taught to students. The verse is given, repeat it as many number of times so that it is there in your mind. Trishu Damasu. Exactly what we discussed in our Anvaya Vrityati Rekha. In these three domains, Yad Bhogyam Bhokta Yas Bhavet. See, this is another form of a prakriya. Just like we had waking, dream, deep sleep. Now I am interacting. So there is a speaker. The speaker is using a certain instrument. So in every interaction, there is a pramata. That means the limited body-mind complex. There is this Chidabhasa. And the Chidabhasa is using a pramana. Will be using an instrument. That is, I'm using my body-mind again to be able to convey. And then pramata, prameyam, and prama. So there is a certain amount of action that is going on or certain amount of experience. So this is broken down here in the form of the three domains. Bhogyam, Bhogya Vastu. That means what are the objects that you would experience? Bhokta, who is the one who is experiencing? And Bhogascha, cha means and. Who is the experience in all the three domains? That means in Anatma, Yad Bhavet, for all of them. Tebhyo Vilakshana Swami Sakshi. Be very clear. I am none of these things. Then what am I? Chinmatra. Chinmatra means it's it is
consciousness.
Pure consciousness. I am this pure consciousness. And pure consciousness, you want to add human, I am Dakshinamurti. Sadashiva is none other than Dakshinamurti. Here is the claim. I am pure consciousness. Chinmatra, Chinmaya. It all means the same thing. Sadashiva. This is the same verse which Dr. Sanjay had to explain, that in the waking dream, deep sleep, there is the interaction of the Triputi. But in reality, I am none of these. Now, this is the last verse of that section, and then you have two more verses which Ullas has to explain. If you analyze it in this way, you will discover there is one aspect of you which never changes, and there is one aspect of you which is constantly changing, which is the Vikari, and which does not undergo any change. This is the same thing which Mamta had explained. Now, between the two, both of them are important for you for worldly interactions. But there is one thing that is there for some time, and the other is not there all the time. So are you going to invest on something that is there only for a short period of time? Let us say, I'm not going to invest on that. So I understand there are two aspects about me. So that is this verse. Now, how do we analyze this? Now, the first part is a clear distinction between the two aspects in me. One is the instrument, the body-mind complex, and the other is the Sakshi. Now, then if I have a choice, make a distinction that the real me is Atma, temporarily using this body-mind complex. Therefore, anything that happens to my body and mind, which is only an instrument, just like I have used so many computers that have come and gone, and this is the present computer. If something goes wrong, if this computer crashes, my ability to interact with you becomes affected. The class will come to an end. But then will I come to an end? Not at all. I'll take another instrument. Just like that, my body-mind is that distinction. Tebhyo vilakshana sakshi chinmatroham sadashiva. Then what happens? Pratibodha vidita matam. In every experience. Now, in every experience, come in touch with the experiencer. And in the experiencer also, there are two. What is this? One is the lower bird, which is the karta, bhokta, experiencer. You negate that. Negate that in the sense that badam, you falsify, give less importance to, but then anchor on that higher bird, which is your true nature. This is the root map of vichara, which goes from bhogya vastu to bhokta to coming to the sakshi. Ullas, are you there? Ullas, are you there to
Sir,
explain?
I am here, but it will not be possible for me to do this, sir.
All right. All right. Ullas has got two very important verses again. Now, we are doing the same thing of trying to falsify the anatma aspect about me and try to understand who is the real me. So, in Nididhyasana, that, and how do you do Nididhyasana? You don't have to sit silently. In every experience, Tat Chintanam, Tat Kathanam, Anyon Tat Prabodhanam. In every experience, you need to dwell on this, that in every experience, there are two things. There is the Mithya and the Satya. I'm going to invest more on the Satya aspect of me. Remember those 5 principles that Swamiji always says, I am of the nature of eternal and all-pervading consciousness. Because of me, I live in this body, and through this body, I'm able to experience this whole world. I am the only source of permanent peace, security, and happiness. Any other peace, security, and happiness are lent by me, and therefore don't give too much importance to the peace and happiness that I get from the world's objects outside. Now, then what happens? If I
If I forget,
if I forget and remember, there is one more thing. Anything that happens to this cannot affect me because I'm a higher order of reality. Very important. Asangaha, asanga. If I remember this, I'm in moksha. That is why we have to dwell on this teaching repeatedly, because it is like Sri Dakshinamurti keeping his foot on the right leg. This is this beautiful first verse. The second verse is Vivichya Nasham Nischitya. Now, in everyday experiences, you will be insulted, humiliated. Hopefully not. But then sometimes, even a small child can insult you. So sometimes, whenever there is a rejection, you feel hurt, you feel insulted. Hurt or upset, whether justified or not, is always self-damaging. Any insults, any hurt that you have, it should not strengthen our ego. Because Kasya Kamaya, who in me is hurt? It is the ego that is hurt in me. And therefore, in every experience, I should allow this to be a body. Just like you're lowering your own body, you have to make your body so weak, body-mind complex. Ego should become as if it is a dead body in front of you. Mumursha, I mean, the one who is about to die. For a person who is about to die, if there is a nice proposal, there is a great chance of investing. You have to only invest 1 lakh and you're getting 1 crore. Now, are you going to go in for that investment? See, when you are getting a marriage proposal at that, this is very humorously said, a person whose body has laid down because he doesn't even have the capacity to lie on the ground. He has to be laid down. That means the body mind is so weak. At that time, will a person think of any proposal is he going to consider while I am alive? This is very beautifully done. There was a great teacher called Nicodemus. Nicodemus was one of the high priests of the great temple of Jerusalem. He had heard so much of Jesus, and silently from the back, because he is a great man, he cannot come in public. He would see the teachings of Jesus, and Jesus had such a wonderful charisma about him. And he wanted to know, what is that which makes you so wonderful? And because he could not come during the day, this is a secret meeting of a high priest coming to Jesus. Was called the vagabond teacher because he was among the lowest of people. And then he asks him this question. And Jesus says, unless you die as you are, unless the ego dies and then you are reborn, you will not have access to the kingdom of my Father's kingdom. He talks very gloriously of I am Atma Brahma. Now, certainly Jesus was a realized person. And when people of their realization talk of their kingdom, people understand the local kings think that he's going to take away their kingdom. That is why he was crucified. He was misunderstood. Vidya, can you continue the next 2 verses, please?
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ityabhipreetya bhoktaram akshipatya vishankaya kasya kamayeti tataha shariranu nahi. Till Shloka 221, Swami Vidyaranya clearly negates the bhokta with the expression kasya kamaya. The expression kasya kamaya states that there is no possibility of the existence of an experiencer sense, negating totally the very existence of the experiencer. There is no one experiencing the joy or sorrow. The state of realization is the experience taking place in the absence of the experiencer. So there is an act without the actor, experience without the experiencer, meaning that the identification with the experience has no value at all. Therefore, Kasya Kamaya means for whose sake, who is the experiencer? Once the fact that desire is an illusion, when this is established, who is to desire and what? Ityabhi Pretya, Keeping all this in mind, the Triputi, Bhokta, Bhogya, Bhoga is negated. The cause of suffering is also gone. Yavishankhaya, without any doubt. This Shoka Nivritti is the sixth stage, is the result indicated by Shariram Anusanjvare. Therefore, he says Shariram Anusanjare Nahi. To reach the seventh rung of the ladder of Triputi Prapti, this crossing over is inevitable. After Jnana, there is no more samsara, which is called Sharira Anujvara, which is discussed in the next shloka. Sthulam Sukshmam Karanam Cha Shariram Trividham Smritam Avashyam Trividhostyeva Tatra Tatrochito Jvaraha. The commentary on Shariram Anusanjaret starts from this verse and goes up to shloka number 250. Even Adi Shankaracharya has written only 3 lines on the expression of this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Every Vedantic student should understand this very well. The word Jvarati means to suffer any form of pain. Jvara is the noun form and Jvarati is the verbal form. Next slide, Doctor. Swami Vidyaranya categorizes suffering into 2 types. One is direct suffering, which is called Jvarati or Jvara. The second one is indirect suffering caused by our identification with Anatma, which has direct suffering. This indirect suffering is called Anujvara. Any family member may go through any form of suffering, maybe 10,000 miles away, which is Jvara. But the indirect suffering is gone through by the people who are close to them, here either in the form of Ahankara and Mamakara. The 3 forms of Anujvara is mentioned in Vedanta. First one is identifying with the world, and suffering is the gross form of Anujvara. The second form is identifying with the family, which is the subtle form of Anujvara. Third is identifying with Sharira Trayam, is the subtlest and the toughest one. The third, giving up this form is, this Anujvara is very, very difficult. And here the Upanishad says, Shariram Anusanjaret. Upanishad is negating freedom from Sharira Traya, Abhimana Janya Anujvaraha, the indirect suffering one goes through because of one's identification with Sharira Anujvara. Identification with Sharira Traya, sorry. I as Atma can have only Anujvara and I as Atma can never have Jvara. So all pains that we claim are all Anujvara only, not Jvara. Swami Vidyaranya says, the removal of Anujvara alone will lead to Trapti Prapti, which is the 7th stage of Moksha. We have to give up the 6th stage of Shoka Nivritti to reach the final stage. According to Swami Vidyaranya, Anujvara issue is an intellectual problem born out of Atma Anatma Avivekaha. He talks about Sharira Jvara, slowly leading to Sharira Anujvara, then talks about Sharira Anujvara Nivritti. This is the topic for the next 28 shlokas. Next slide, Doctor. Shariram word is used in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Vedanta talks about Sharira Trayam, Stula Sharira Jvara, Stula Sharira Anujvara, Stula Sharira Anujvara Nivritti. Same thing in the case of Sukshma and Karana Shariras. So, totally 9 topics. After the threefold Sharirams, Swami Vidyaranya says Tatra. Tatra here meaning each Sharira has its own intrinsic Jvara, which is choiceless and cannot be eliminated. Uchitaha meaning appropriate and relevant. There is no such thing as Jvara-free Sharira, but Jvara-free Shariri is possible. Here, Jvara can be any intrinsic problem in each Anatma. Then the adjective Avashya is added, which means it will definitely be there. There is no perfect Stula Sharira, no perfect Sukshma Sharira, no perfect Karana Sharira. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Vidya. We have now entered into a new topic. The new topic is understanding what is Jwara and what is Anujwara. Because Jwara affects the body, Anujwara is when you are able to internalize this. Because of the body is three, you have three kinds of Jwaras. Now, as the next two speakers are speaking on the same topic, we will listen to all of them and then have a discussion at the end. Dr. Anupama, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is verse 227 and 229. We have now heard about the various jwaras of the Sharira Traya. So we should be wondering. Now, these questions should enter our mind. Can we put an end to all the afflictions of our Shariras? Can we be ever free of disease, stress, ignorance? At what stage of our lives do these jwaras inflict our Sharira? The answer is in this verse. Ete jvara sharireshu trishu swabhavika mataha. Meaning the three jvaras are intrinsic. They are the upadana karana of the three bodies. That is why yatra yatra shariram tatra tatra jvara. When do the bodies get totally free from these jvaras? Only when the sharira drops dead. This means it is not possible to eliminate jvaras and retain the body. Three examples, the intrinsic nature of these jvaras. Tanto viyujjena pataha. This means, can cloth be separated from thread? Balebhya kambala. Can a woolen blanket be separated from the sheep's fur? Mrida gatastata. Can a pot be separate from clay? What do we understand? Sharira and jvara can never be separated. So what do? Getting rid of this jvara seems impossible. The most feasible thing to do is attack the anujvara. I have anujvara only when I identify with Sharira Traya. What is anujvara? It is a kind of self-judgment, a self-conclusion that I am a samsari. We know that there is no sadhana to cure jvara. Vedanta tells us that by dissociating from anatma and claiming that I am asanga atma, by abhimana tyaga, anujvara is cured. The next verse, chidhabase svataha ka api jvara nasti. Does Chaitanya have jvara? No. Both Bimba Chaitanya and Pratibimba Chaitanya do not have jvara. Why? Because Chaitanya is of the nature of light of consciousness. Prakashaika swabhavatvam eva drashtam. For example, when we see the reflection of the sun on a mirror, any dirt on the mirror cannot taint the reflected sun and certainly not the original sun. Similarly, the jvara of the sharira, which is compared to the mirror, cannot afflict either the bimba or the pratibimba chaitanya. So we know that both chit and chidabhasa do not have jvara. Chidabhasaha swataha ka api jvara nasti. We can see chidabhasa is comparable to this clear crystal, but due to its proximity to sharira traya, which is like the rose here, the jvara of the sharira is transferred to the chidabhasa. This is anujvara. So to conclude, when I claim that I am chit, I'm free from all jvaras. As chidabhasa, the only jvara that I can have is anujvara, and this can be removed by dissociation from sharira and association from chit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anupama. In a span of just a little more than 3 minutes, you have nicely explained what is this jvara and anujvara, and the conviction that as long as we have this body, we have jvara. If you have a jvara, we go to a doctor. And the doctor will do whatever he or she knows about the problem. But then, if you internalize the body's problem as, I am sick, I am old, I am going to die, that is where we need Vedanta to say, you are not the body. The body is sick, the body is having some illness, the body is getting old, the body is going to die. But I am none of these things. I am of the nature of light. Now, what about Chidabhasa also cannot be affected? That is such a beautiful understanding. Not only the Chidabhasa that you blame for all those ego business, that also does not have any jwaras. It is only the body that has jwara. See, as doctors, we have the privilege of being able to treat jwaras. As a doctor, you have compassion, you sympathize, you empathize. Can we do the same thing with our bodies? That means if you get too involved with the patient, then you're supposing the patient is your family member and you internalize that as it is your own, then you are not able to treat the patient properly. Why? Because now not only you have jwara, you have anujwara. Just like a doctor is able to treat a disease because he does not feel it is affecting my body, so too we need to handle our diseases of the body and the mind. Like a physician, heal thyself. Padma, please.
हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः चिताभासेत्यसंभाव्य ज्वरा साक्षिणी का कथा एवं एव वै कथा मेने चिताभासो च विद्यया. In the earlier verses, Swami Vidyaranya has said that Chitabhasa by itself has no jvaraha, that is suffering or afflictions, because it is not different from Chit. It does not have independent identity and is entirely dependent on Chit, and it is merely its reflection. It mixes or merges with Chit, but it cannot add to the illumination of Chit, because Chit, Kutastha Chaitanya, is of unchanging nature. It is like the moon has no illumination of its own. It reflects the illumination of the sun. The first part of the verse, Chitabhase api jvaraha asambhavya sakshini ka katha. Chitabhase api jvaraha. Jvaraha is not possible for Chidabhasa. Imagine the sun rays on a muddy puddle of water. The reflection of the sunlight does not get sullied or tainted by the condition of the muddy water. And sakshini ka katha means, then what to say of the sunlight which falls or reflects on the rivers, seas, oceans, etc.? Its reflection on all remain unchanged in its pristine form. Meaning, what to say of the consciousness, the original consciousness, the Kutastha Chaitanya, which is the same in you, me, and all the millions of subtle bodies in the universe without any afflictions. This consciousness is Paramarthika Satya. Sharira is Vyavaharika or Mithya. Jvara is also Mithya. Chidabhasa is also Mithya. Chit alone is Satya. The second part of the verse, Evam api Chidabhasa avidya ekatam mene. Evam api. However, the Chidabhasa, due to avidya, ignorance, ekatam mene, accepts identification. When there is no possibility of afflictions on Chitabhasa, cannot also be in Sakshi, that is the original consciousness. So, if suffering Jvaraha is absolutely impossible for both Chit and Chitabhasa, how does one experience suffering? Shariratraya is reflecting medium. Sakshi consciousness is my original nature, said Lord Krishna while talking of Paraprakriti and Aparaprakriti. He said, Chitabhasa is my Aparaprakriti and Chit is my original Paraprakriti. The Chidabhasa identifies or considers itself in a state of oneness with the body and mind instead of claiming to be nothing but Chit. And because of avidya, ignorance, maya, this anujvara, that is, mistaking the body, mind, sense complex as I in the source of suffering. It is mental, cognitive, or perceptual concept occurring only in the intellect or mind. The Kutastha Chaitanya is immune to modification. The Shariratraya, the three bodies are of the nature of constant modification. Therefore, the Chidabhasa is totally dependent on these two factors, the Kutastha Chaitanya and the constant modification or afflictions of the body. Swami Paramarthanandaji says, Chidabhasa is a fictitious, illusory entity begins to imagine to be real. With these false notions, born of delusion, the true nature of Sakshi, Chit, the individual identifies with Shariratraya and superimposes Adhyasa, the affliction of the bodies, on itself, then becomes Bhokta experiencer, the afflicted individual. And Karta Bhokta factor, the I factor, comes in. The self-afflicted sorrows, like I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm this, I'm that, goes on. The next verse. Putra dhareshu tapyastu tapamiti yatha vrita manyate purushasta tad vada abhaso pyabhi manyate. Translation. Just as an ordinary man unnecessarily considers himself to be suffering when his son or wife suffers, in the same way, the Chidabhasa, Jiva, also considers itself to be the body and suffers when the body suffers. We have seen our grandparents, parents, and ourselves go through ups and downs in life. Pain and pleasure, success and failures in family. More the proximity or emotional closeness, relationship to people, more the misery or suffering. This situation can be Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, or Adidaivika to Shariratraya. The Chidabhasa accepts the afflictions of the bodies to be its own because of delusion. Neither the misery nor the delusion is real. It is like, can the reflection of the sun own the bucket and water it reflects as its own? It is illusionary afflictions of the illusory individual. In Vedanta, we identify the problem of suffering. The unique teaching of Advaita Vedanta is to demonstrate the root cause of our suffering, that is, truth of who you are, Atma, and truth of who you are not, Anatma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Padma. So that is the crux. The truth of who you are is Atma and you are not Anatma. And if you internalize the Anatma's problem as your problem, that is what is called Anujvara. And that is where Vedanta comes in and says, as long as you have a body, you will have bodily problems. As long as you have a mind, you will have mental issues. But then see them as affecting the instrument that you use, and it is not you. We can have a few minutes for discussion, please, on all these. What is this Jvara and Anujvara?
So with physical suffering, I think it's slightly easier to put in some distance between the sufferer and our true nature. But with mental illness or mental pain, how do we get our mind to still bring in that clarity?
Very true. See, now whenever you have a problem, then Shri Krishna says, Matra sparsha sukhaunteya sitoshna sukha dukha adaya agama pahino anitya tam titikshasva bharata. Be mentally strong. So whenever you have a physical pain, okay, I can bear it. When there is a lot of hunger and food is not available, you will tolerate. When there is, you're in a cramped position for a long time and there is no, you have to continue the way, you put up, because why? You have the mental resilience to handle it. But then when the mind is affected, then it is a problem. So therefore, what can I say? See, this is only an instrument. When the mind is affected, that's why you will see how damaging any form of mental issues can be, because your main instrument is your mind. And we have to only hope and pray. That is where our prarabdha comes in. If our prarabdha is good, and fortunately our prarabdha has been good until now, so that we have been able to get this. Now, hopefully, before any serious mental issues come in, you will remember, and this is what I heard this from Swami Sarvapriyananda. Sarvapriyananda had a teacher who was a great acharya, and when he had any doubts, he would go to him. And then the teacher was getting old. And when they get old, they stay in a kind of an infirmary, which is like a halfway hospital, where they get oxygen, they get nursing care, but they're not in a hospital. He was in that infirmary of the Ramakrishna mission. Belur Mutt. And Sarvapriyananda Swamiji would go to him even in this place and ask him certain doubts. And one day when he asked him something, he took off his oxygen mask, looked at him, thought for a while, and then he smiled and he says, I just can't remember. He says, you know, my mind is not able to remember at all. But then he made a nice statement, but it has served its purpose. So therefore, that is the urgency now. How long our body and mind is not going to be fit. Before we finish Tripti Deepa, you know, let us take each of these as an opportunity for us to know who is my real nature. Atmanam ched vijaniyat ayam asmiti purusha. This first line should be internalized. And once this line is internalized, then one day or sometime when the mind is not itself, Panaga, because when the mind is not there, what can you do?
Actually, when the mind gets dysfunctional, Anujvara should also go away.
In an advanced extent. See, you know, you can make out when a person is so bad. See, when a person has incontinence and all that, no, then you know. See, when a person has incontinence and just not aware of all these things, so when the disease or dementia and other things become little more advanced, so you will see in any form of mental illnesses, incontinence is not there. When it becomes physical and mental, that means when dementia sets in, incontinence comes in. When incontinence comes in, then you know that you have reached the stage when a person is probably, there is no Anujvara also.
Sir, I have a solution for Panaga's question.
Oh, wonderful. Come.
Now, if you have a lot of problems, please consult a psychiatrist. Yeah, I'm talking as a psychiatrist, of course, for people who don't know. So, more than 90% of those problems where our swabhava is upahata, when our intellect seems clouded, when we are not able to make decisions, particularly, like you say, because of the mental illness, severe depression, it could be anxiety, severe stress. These are all the emotional and the disorders related to the thought. Only when the cognition, memory part is involved, that is the other stage, that is the dementia that you're talking about. For most of the mental illnesses, especially, I mean, every day, we see about 25 to 30 patients. I must tell, when I take a history, we do take a lot of spiritual history also. And I must tell, sir, at least one person, one or two persons in the OPD have an inclination or orientation towards spirituality. And to my surprise, most of them, I don't know whether I'm picking them up or most of them are Advaita followers only. So they do come with a lot of suffering, and it is not uncommon. Again, that is the jwara. Those are the issues with the mind alone. But if you're able to objectify that it is an issue with the mind, and there you get a little bit of space to maneuver, little bit of area to think that yes, that is now objectified and let me deal with it like any other physical illness, i.e. going to a doctor. We might prescribe a medicine and that can help them. They do come out of it. And I must also take this opportunity to say tomorrow is a world suicide day, or a suicide prevention day. So a lot of people who contemplate suicide is because obviously their intellect is completely incapacitated because of acute stress, or it could be a personality, or it could be severe depression. But all suicides are preventable, provided they know that it is happening to an instrument or an organ in the body, which is mind, and take a necessary step like any other physical illness.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See, like you have the skills, even when the instrument that is supposed to handle is affected, to be able to empower exactly what Shri Krishna did with Arjuna. You will see Arjuna was not physically incapacitated. He was mentally incapacitated. And so you will see how the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is a treatment for a person who is mentally afflicted by world day-to-day situations. I mean, extreme day-to-day situations. So the Bhagavad Gita is an example also of Panaga's question. So, the Divakar, you are not only a mental psychiatry doctor, you are also a spiritual doctor.
No, honestly, I can't thank enough, sir, you and all the Swamijis. It's added, most needed dimension to our practice. And not only me, of course, Manjula is there and Prasanna, we all are kind of inclined. So we can look through this, and it's surprisingly many of them. Moment we take spiritual history and they talk about it, all conversations are related to this only, and they are much more easier to connect and come out of it. And sometimes you do need the medicines to help them come to terms with their emotional issues.
See, we have got a nice discussion. Now, shall we work on ourselves? So every time there is a problem, so our language should be affected. You say, my body is not well, but I'm okay. Go to another extent. My mind is going through a lot of anxiety, or sometimes my mind is going through a lot of depressive thoughts, but I am okay. I am the illuminator of a depressed mind. I am the illuminator of an anxious mind. I am the illuminator of a body that is going through a lot of physical issues like whatever. But see yourself as the illuminator and do whatever you can do to help this instrument of the body and mind to be alleviated. Any other thoughts?
So I had a question with respect to this Karana Sharira Anujvara is not under our control, right? That is Vasana related and
That's true. That's true.
right?
That's true. But Dr. Anupama, can you add a little more about what is this Karana Sharira Jwaras and Anujwaras?
Whichever the Sharira, Anujvara is the same. It's only the Jwara which is different. Anujvara is your choice of associating with it. The Karana Sharira Jwara is two things. One is Ajnana, and second is the yet to come Prarabdha, the Agami and Sanchita karmas, which are in the unmanifest, in the potential form. So, we do not suffer that as such. None of the Sharira suffer it because it is yet to manifest.
Very true. So the Karana Sharira Jwaras are two things. One is ignorance. Second is about the Prarabdha, which is yet to manifest. There is yet to manifest Prarabdha. We always say, no, what is going to happen tomorrow? I do not know. But what is going to happen? See, in this Tripti Deepa only, there were two verses. One verse which said, special prayers. Can this status quo be there? And the next prayer says, whatever is going to happen will happen. So what to do? It's going to happen. Let us be mentally strong like Matra Sparsha Su Kaunteya.
Sir, one thing, sir. Can I ask? Somebody said Chidabhasa has no jwara, no afflictions. Chidabhasa is the mind's actions and thought process of the mind. And that is the first thing which is going to be affected. No? Anything happens to the body and it's an Atma.
A very nice question, brilliantly addressed by Vidyaranya. Who's going to answer this? It is open to anybody who will answer. The question is, can Chidabhasa have jwaras or is it pure?
Chidabhasa
Cannot have, sorry. Yeah, go on, Anupama.
That is the first thing to be affected, no?
No, Chidabhasa has got, see, we have the Sharira Traya, which is properly Jada, and it is Savikara. We have Chaitanya, which is Nirvikara and Chaitanya. We have, that is the original consciousness. We have the Chidabhasa, which is reflected consciousness, which has two properties. One is it has borrowed Chaitanya from the original consciousness, and it is Savikara, not Nirvikara like Chidabhasa. Meaning, if it is very close to the Sharira, the problems of the Sharira can be superimposed on it, and it will reflect that, though it is actually not the carrier of the Jwara. So that is why it is described as Vikari. What we should do consciously is move our Chidabhasa away from the Sharira, closer to the original consciousness. So much so that the Chidabhasa gets so weakened, it should be like a corpse, and you're only operating through your original consciousness.
I know this is a sadhana, what you were saying, but reflected consciousness, savikara part of the Chidabhasa definitely going to take up the afflictions, no?
That is true. See, the reflection is not going to be, if the mirror is sullied or if the water is very dirty or something, the reflection is not going to be as good as the original. So the Chidabhasa will again seem to be affected. So it is still, but then you remember what, if you use a light example or if you use consciousness example, whatever the reflected consciousness or the reflected light is, asanga by itself, intrinsically. So if you really look between the lines, Sukanya, your question is very pertinent. See, when I am feeling sad, my Chidabhasa is affected. It looks like my Chidabhasa has got jwara. But strictly, if you see, Chidabhasa is of the nature of consciousness. And consciousness cannot really be affected, just like the light that is falling on dirty water. Whatever is reflected is still light only. And the light is asanga to whatever it illumines. It does not get sanga by that way. In that context, Chidabhasa is not affected. But in our own experience, you will certainly see Chidabhasa is affected. That is why the Jwara Anujwara Sadhana